Thanksgiving was supposed to be peaceful, but my sister spent the entire dinner mocking my luck and bragging about her new director role. She laughed about firing employees to boost her bonus, unaware I own the parent company. The next morning, I froze her assets. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The betrayal didn't start with a scream or a slap. It started with the quiet, distinct sound of a champagne flute being set down too hard on a granite coaster. I shouldn't have even been there. My body felt like it was made of lead, a lingering parting gift from a bout of walking pneumonia that had kept me bedridden for the better part of November. My doctor had told me to stay home, to rest, to avoid stress at all costs. But it was Thanksgiving. The guilt trips from my mother, Sophia, had started 3 days prior, subtle at first, and then escalating into full-blown emotional manipulation. "It's just family, Claire. You can rest on the couch. Edward misses you. Chloe is finally coming home." So, against my better judgment and the screaming protests of my immune system, I went. I sat at the end of the mahogany dining table, my skin pale and clammy, a sheen of cold sweat on my forehead that I kept dabbing away with a napkin. I felt small. Physically, I had lost weight from the illness, my clothes hanging loosely off my frame, which only seemed to fuel the narrative my family had constructed about me. They didn't see a successful woman recovering from a severe illness. They saw Claire, the struggler, the drifter, the one who got lucky with investments but didn't have a real job. The air in the dining room was thick, not just with the scent of roasted turkey and sage stuffing, but with a palpable tension that radiated from the seat of honor. That was where my younger sister, Chloe, sat. She was glowing, radiant in a designer dress that cost more than my first car, holding court like a queen addressing her subjects. She hadn't asked me how I was feeling. Not once. She hadn't asked why I was drinking tea instead of wine. She had barely looked me in the eye since she swept through the front door an hour late. "It's just tragic, really," Chloe said, her voice dripping with that faux sympathy that cuts deeper than a knife. She looked down the table at me, swirling her wine. "I mean, look at you, Claire. You look exhausted. Is the consulting gig drying up? Is that why you look so run down?" "I have pneumonia, Chloe," I rasped, my voice weak. "I'm recovering." Right. Illness." She dismissed it with a wave of her manicured hand. "Stress lowers the immune system, you know, and financial instability is the #1 cause of stress. I read that in Forbes." Sophia, my mother, bustled in from the kitchen with a bowl of mashed potatoes. "Now, Chloe, be nice. Claire does her best. We all have different paths." "I'm just saying," Chloe continued, leaning forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. "It must be hard, watching me skyrocket while you just kind of float. But don't worry. This new position I landed, it's huge, director level. The salary alone is staggering. Maybe I can help you out with your rent this month." I gripped my tea mug so hard my knuckles turned white. She had no idea. None of them did. "I don't need your money, Chloe," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "Don't be proud," Edward, my father, chimed in from the head of the table, not looking up from his plate. "Take help if it's offered, Claire. Your sister is doing very well for herself. You should be happy for her." "I am happy for her," I lied. "You should be," Chloe smirked, "because I'm about to clean house. The company I just joined, total mess, but I'm going to fix it. I'm going to be ruthless." "Which company?" I asked, a strange, cold sensation washing over me that had nothing to do with the fever. "It's a mid-sized tech firm called Viridian Dynamics," she announced proudly. "They just got acquired by some silent holding group, so there's no oversight. I'm going to run that marketing department like a Navy ship." The room seemed to tilt. The sound of forks scraping against porcelain faded into a dull buzz. Viridian Dynamics. I didn't just know the company. I didn't just know the holding group. I was the holding group. I had finalized the acquisition of Viridian 3 weeks ago from my hospital bed. I was the majority shareholder. I was the silent owner. And my sister, the woman currently mocking my poverty and my health, had just unwittingly told her boss exactly what she thought of her. The betrayal of her cruelty was expected. We had always been rivals. But the betrayal of her arrogance, the absolute certainty that I was beneath her, struck a chord in me that vibrated with dangerous intensity. It wasn't the fever making me shiver anymore. It was the sudden, icy realization of the power I held in the palm of my hand. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself, because while the pneumonia would eventually leave my lungs, the venom my sister was spitting was part of her DNA. The dinner dragged on, an endurance test of emotional fortitude. Every bite of turkey tasted like ash in my mouth. I focused on my breathing, on the simple mechanical act of inhaling and exhaling, while Chloe turned the Thanksgiving table into her personal podium. Rachel, my aunt who had driven 3 hours to be here, sat across from me. She was a nurse, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes who had been watching the dynamic unfold with a furrowed brow. She caught my eye as Chloe launched into another monologue about her brilliance. Rachel offered me a small, tight smile, a silent signal of solidarity that kept me from walking out the door right then and there. The previous director was soft, Chloe declared, stabbing a piece of carrot with unnecessary violence. She cared too much about team morale and work-life balance. Please, I told the VP during my interview that I don't care if they like me, I care if they perform. That's the spirit, Edward boomed, pouring himself more wine. That's how you get ahead in this world. You have to be tough. Claire, are you listening? You could learn something from your sister. I looked at my father, a man who had retired 10 years ago and hadn't navigated a modern corporate environment since fax machines were cutting edge. I'm listening, Dad, I said quietly. Good, Chloe said, because here is the master plan. Phase 1, audit the staff. Anyone over 45? Gone. They're too expensive and they don't get the digital landscape. I'm going to replace them with fresh grads who will work 80 hours a week for half the price. My stomach lurched. Veridian Dynamics had a marketing team that was legendary for its experience. There were people on that team who had been there for 15 years, people with families, mortgages, and institutional knowledge that was irreplaceable. I had bought the company specifically because of that human capital. And my sister was planning to fire them all to pad her quarterly bonus. Is that legal? Sophia asked nervously, picking at her napkin. Firing people just for being older. Mom, please, Chloe rolled her eyes. You don't say it's because they're old. You say it's a restructuring of talent or culture fit. It's corporate 101. I'll clear out the dead wood, the budget will look amazing by Q1, and I'll secure the maximum performance bonus. Then I buy that condo in the city I showed you. You're talking about people's livelihoods, I said, the anger burning through the fog of my illness. These are human beings, Chloe, not line items on a spreadsheet. Chloe laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Oh, Claire, you're so soft. That's why you're still driving a 6-year-old sedan and living in that apartment complex. You don't have the stomach for success. You think luck is going to save you. You think the world owes you a living. She leaned in, her eyes narrowing. Success is taken, Claire. It's not given. I take what I want. That's the difference between us. I'm a shark. You're fish food. I looked down at my plate, letting the insult wash over me. I thought about the files on my encrypted laptop back at my apartment. I thought about the organizational charts I had reviewed, the personnel files I had memorized. I thought about the email I could send with a single fingerprint authorization. You're right, Chloe, I said softly, looking up and meeting her gaze with a calmness that seemed to unsettle her for a split second. We are very different. Glad you finally admit it, she scoffed, turning back to Rachel. So, Aunt Rachel, did I tell you about the company car they're giving me? A brand new Audi. They haven't given it to you yet, have they? I asked. Well, no, Chloe hesitated. I start on Monday, but it's in the contract, it's a done deal. Right, I nodded slowly. Monday. Monday was Black Friday. The markets were open. The corporate offices were technically closed for the holiday weekend, but the executive systems were always online. Chloe continued to prattle on about her genius, her upcoming purge of the old guard, and the luxury goods she planned to acquire. She basked in our parents' adoration, feeding off their praise like a vampire. She thought she was invincible. She thought she was the smartest person in the room. But she had forgotten one crucial thing. She had forgotten that in the game of capitalism she claimed to love so much, ownership always trumps management. She was playing checkers, loud and aggressive. I was playing chess, and I had already moved my queen into position. To understand why this moment was so shattering, you have to understand the history. You have to understand what I gave up for her. I am 34. Chloe is 26. When we were growing up, there was always an unspoken rule in the house. Chloe was the special one. She was the baby, the loud one, the one who needed extra attention, extra tutors, extra money for dance class and cheer camp. I was the reliable one, the one who got good grades without being asked, the one who didn't need help. So I didn't get help. When I started my first business at 22, eating ramen noodles and working out of a damp basement, my parents told me I was wasting my time. When Chloe wanted to go to a private university out of state, they refinanced their house. When that wasn't enough, I, who had just started seeing my first real returns, stepped in. I paid for her tuition. I paid for her sorority dues. I paid for her study abroad trip to Italy. I did it anonymously, funneling the money through my parents because I knew they couldn't afford it and I didn't want to shame them. They told Chloe they found a way. They let her believe the money magically appeared. I created this monster. I watered the seeds of her entitlement with my own sweat and equity. And now, that monster was sitting across from me, wearing diamond earrings I had effectively paid for, planning to destroy the lives of honest workers I had sworn to protect. The antagonist of my life wasn't a stranger. It was the little sister whose hair I used to braid. But looking at her now, I saw the transformation was complete. Chloe wasn't just spoiled, she was malicious. So, Claire, Chloe said, drawing my attention back to the present. She was picking at the remains of the pumpkin pie. Since I'm going to be making serious money now, I was thinking, maybe you should sell me your share of the family cabin. The cabin? It was a small, dilapidated A-frame by the lake that Grandpa had left to both of us. It was my sanctuary. It was the only place I could go to escape the noise of the city. I'm not selling the cabin, Chloe, I said firmly. Why not? She whined, her voice taking on that petulant edge that usually made Sophia cave instantly. You can't afford the upkeep. The roof needs work. The dock is rotting. I have the capital to fix it up into a real vacation home. You could use the money too. I don't know, buy some decent clothes, get a makeover. The cabin is not for sale, I repeated. Mom, tell her, Chloe pouted. She's being selfish. She never uses it anyway. Claire, honey, Sophia started, her voice pleading. Your sister makes a good point. It would stay in the family. And you know money is tight for you right now. Money isn't tight for me, I snapped, my patience finally fraying. Oh, please, Chloe sneered. Stop pretending. We all know you're barely scraping by. You drive a Honda, Claire. A Honda. Successful people don't drive Hondas. Successful people don't wear off-the-rack suits. You're a consultant, that's just code for unemployed. Just sell me the cabin so I can turn it into something actually impressive. She leaned back, crossing her arms, a smug look of triumph on her face. She looked at me not as a sister, but as an obstacle to be removed, a resource to be harvested. She was sleek, polished, and utterly hollow. She was a director of marketing who didn't understand the first thing about brand loyalty or human connection. She was a fraud wrapped in luxury packaging. You really think you're better than everyone, don't you? I asked quietly. I don't think, Chloe smiled, a predator showing teeth. I know. The market decides value, Claire, and right now, the market says I'm a director and you're a nobody. So, sign over the cabin, take the check, and be grateful I'm generous enough to offer you a bailout. I looked at Rachel. She had stopped eating. She was staring at Chloe with open disgust. Then she looked at me, and I saw a question in her eyes. Are you going to take this? I took a deep breath, feeling the rattle in my chest, but ignoring it. The fever was still there, but the fire in my belly was hotter. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long, Chloe warned, checking her reflection in her spoon. My offer expires when I start work on Monday. After that, the price goes down. Monday, I repeated. Right, Monday. I stood up, my legs shaky but holding. I'm going to head out. I need to rest. Leaving so soon, Chloe mocked. Couldn't handle the heat. Something like that, I said. Enjoy your victory lap, Chloe. Make sure you savor it. I walked out of the house into the cold November air. I didn't go home to sleep. I went home to work. If Chloe wanted to see how the market decided value, I was more than happy to give her a crash course in economics. I didn't sleep that night. The fever was still a low-grade hum in the background of my consciousness, but the adrenaline that had flooded my system at the dinner table was a far more potent stimulant. I sat at my desk in my shabby apartment, the one Chloe mocked, surrounded by the tools of my actual trade. To the naked eye, my home office looked modest. A simple IKEA desk, a comfortable ergonomic chair, and a laptop. But the laptop was a military-grade encrypted machine, and the network I was connecting to was the private server of Helios Holdings, the investment firm I had founded 6 years ago. I logged in. The screen glowed with the comforting blue of the secure dashboard. My official title at Helios was Senior Consultant, a vague enough moniker to satisfy casual inquiries. In reality, I held 51% of the voting stock. When we acquired Veridian Dynamics 3 weeks ago, I had insisted on remaining a silent partner. I wanted the existing CEO, a brilliant man named Marcus, to run the ship without the market thinking there was a shake-up. I wanted stability. Chloe was the antithesis of stability. Okay, let's see how you got in, I whispered to the empty room, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I accessed the HR portal for Veridian. I had admin privileges that superseded everyone, including the CEO. I navigated to the new hires executive level folder. There she was, Chloe D. I pulled up her onboarding file. The offer letter was there, signed with a digital flourish. The salary was indeed staggering, significantly higher than the industry standard for a director of marketing with her level of experience. I frowned, scrolling down to the approvals section. Usually, a hire at this level required 3 signatures: the VP of Operations, the head of HR, and the CEO. Chloe's file had the VP's signature. It had the HR head's signature, but the CEO's signature was missing. Instead, there was an override code used by the VP of Operations, a man named Greg Miller. Greg, I muttered, why would you bypass Marcus for this? I opened a new window and started digging into Greg Miller's company communications. It was a breach of privacy I rarely exercised, but the threat Chloe posed to the company and the potential lawsuit for age discrimination she had bragged about at dinner gave me probable cause. It didn't take long. I found an email thread between Greg and Chloe dating back 2 months. Subject: the position from Chloe D. to Greg Miller. Greg, darling, I need this. The salary has to be at least redacted. I promise, once I'm in, I'll clean house. We can get rid of the old guard you hate so much. Just get me the offer. I'll make it worth your while. Remember that thing in Vegas? We don't want that getting out. I leaned back in my chair, the air leaving my lungs in a sharp hiss. It was worse than nepotism. It was blackmail, or at least a heavy implication of it. Chloe had leveraged a personal secret to force a VP to hire her at an inflated rate, bypassing the CEO, with the specific intent of conducting an illegal purge of the staff. I picked up my phone. It was 3:00 a.m., but I knew who would be awake. I dialed my personal attorney, Sarah. She answered on the second ring. Claire, it's 3 in the morning. Are you okay? Is it the pneumonia? I'm fine, Sarah, or at least I will be. I need you to open a file. Priority 1. Okay, I heard the rustle of sheets and the click of a lamp. Who's the target? My sister, and the VP of Operations at Veridian Dynamics. Your sister, Sarah's voice lost its sleepiness instantly. The one you paid tuition for, the one who thinks you're a pauper. The very same. She's been hired as the new marketing director, and she's planning a mass firing based on age. She also appears to have coerced the VP into hiring her. I need a forensic audit of Greg Miller's accounts, and I need a legal hold placed on Chloe's employment contract immediately. Do not terminate her yet. Just pause everything, freeze her credentials, freeze her payroll setup. Copy that. I'll have the papers drafted by sunrise. Claire, are you sure? This is going to blow up your family dynamic. I looked at the screen, at the arrogant signature on Chloe's contract. The family dynamic is already blown, Sarah. I'm just clearing the rubble. The fallout was immediate, but not in the way Chloe expected. Saturday morning arrived with a gray, oppressive sky. My fever had broken, leaving me weak but clear-headed. I was sitting on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, reviewing the preliminary report Sarah had sent over when the pounding started. It wasn't a knock, it was an assault on my front door. Claire, open up, I know you're in there. I sighed, closing my laptop and sliding it under a cushion. I walked to the door and unlocked it. Chloe burst in like a hurricane, wearing a designer tracksuit and holding a Starbucks cup that looked like a weapon in her grip. Her face was flushed, her eyes wide with a mix of confusion and rage. My login isn't working, she screamed, bypassing hello entirely. I tried to log into the Veridian onboarding portal to order my new laptop and set up my direct deposit, and it says access denied, pending investigation. What does that mean? I walked to the kitchen and turned on the kettle. I assume it means you're under investigation, Chloe. Would you like some tea? She stared at me, her mouth agape. Tea? Are you insane? I'm talking about my career. I called Greg and he's not picking up. I called HR and they said the file is locked by corporate legal. Why aren't you freaking out for me? This is a disaster. Why would I freak out? I asked calmly, leaning against the counter. I thought you were a shark. Sharks don't panic. Don't mock me. She slammed her cup down on my small dining table, coffee splashing over the rim. This is a glitch. It has to be. I start Monday. I have a plan. I have people to fire. Right, I said. The people over 45. The dead wood. Exactly. I need to get in there and assert dominance immediately. If I can't log in, I look weak. She paced around my small living room, her eyes scanning my modest furniture with disdain. God, how do you live like this? It smells like old books and failure in here. Chloe, I said, my voice hardening. Did it ever occur to you that threatening to fire people based on their age is illegal? That maybe someone flagged your profile because you're a liability? She stopped pacing and looked at me, her eyes narrowing. Who told you that? I only said that at dinner. I haven't told anyone at the company yet, except Greg. And what did you tell Greg? I took a step forward. Did you tell him about your vision for the department, or did you remind him about Vegas? The color drained from her face faster than water from a cracked basin. She froze, her hand hovering halfway to her mouth. The silence that stretched between us was heavy, suffocating. How, she swallowed hard, how do you know about that? I know a lot of things, Chloe. I know you bypassed the CEO. I know your salary is 20% over the budget cap. And I know that as of this morning, Greg Miller has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal review. You've been stalking me? Her shock was quickly replaced by a defensive fury. You hacked my email. That's a felony, Claire. I'll have you arrested. I'll sue you for everything you have, which, granted, isn't much, but I'll take it all. I didn't hack your email, I said, which was technically true. I had audited a company account I owned. But you're missing the point. You're not starting on Monday, Chloe. Your offer is being rescinded. She laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. You think you have the power to rescind my offer? You're a nobody. You're my sick, poor, jealous older sister who lives in a dump. Greg is the VP. He runs the place. Greg doesn't run the place, I corrected her gently. The owners do. And what do you know about owners? She spat. You've never owned anything of value in your life. You're just trying to scare me because you're envious. You're jealous that I made it and you didn't. Well, guess what? I'm going to go to the office on Monday anyway. I'm going to walk right past security, march into my office, and if anyone tries to stop me, I'll sue the company for discrimination. She grabbed her purse, her chest heaving. And as for you, don't expect an invite to Christmas. You're dead to me. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture frame on the wall tilted. I watched the door for a moment, then walked over and straightened the frame. It was a picture of us as kids, smiling on the dock at the cabin. I tried to warn you, I whispered, but you never listen. The silence following Chloe's departure didn't last long. Within an hour, my phone began to vibrate, dancing across the coffee table like a frantic beetle. Mom calling. I let it go to voicemail. Mom calling. I let it go again. Dad calling. I picked up. My father rarely called unless the house was on fire. Claire, his voice was gruff, strained. Your mother is in hysterics. Chloe is here, she says. She says you hacked her computer. She says you called her company and spread lies about her to get her fired. What is going on? I didn't lie, Dad, I said, sinking onto the sofa. The fatigue was creeping back. Chloe got that job through blackmail, and she was planning to break labor laws the second she walked in the door. I just ensured the company knew about it. It's not your business, he shouted, a sound so rare it made me flinch. Why couldn't you just let her have this? She finally found her footing. She finally got a break. And you, her own sister, you sabotage her, because what? You're jealous. I am not jealous, I said, enunciating every word. I am protecting the company. What company? You don't work there, you're a consultant. This has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me, I almost shouted back, but I caught myself. I couldn't tell him yet, not over the phone. No. While he was in defense mode. Dad, listen to me. Chloe is in trouble, real legal trouble. She needs to stop digging. She's not in trouble, he snapped. She's a victim of a jealous sister. We're lending her the money for a lawyer. She's going to sue that company, and she's going to sue you if she has to. I'm disappointed in you, Claire. I thought we raised you better. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a cold hollow expanding in my chest. We're lending her the money. They were dipping into their retirement savings. Again, to fund her delusions. To fund a lawsuit against me. The stakes had just shifted. It wasn't just about protecting my employees anymore. It was about saving my parents from financial ruin at the hands of their golden child. I went back to my laptop. If Chloe was going to drag our parents into this, I needed to make sure the door was slammed shut so tight she couldn't pry it open with a lawsuit. I needed more than the email. The email was, he said, she said. I needed hard evidence of her incompetence and fraud. I dug deeper into the Chloe D. file Sarah had flagged. I ran a verification check on the resume she had submitted. She claimed to have been the head of digital strategy at a boutique firm in Chicago for 3 years. I knew the firm. I knew the owner. I picked up the phone and dialed. Hey David, it's Claire. Claire, long time, how's the empire? Growing. Listen, I need a favor. Did a Chloe D ever work for you as head of digital strategy? There was a pause, followed by a confused laugh. Chloe, you mean the intern? The one we let go after 3 months because she used the corporate card to buy Taylor Swift tickets. That's the one. She was never head of strategy. She was a junior associate at best. We fired her for cause. Why? She just applied for a director role at one of my holdings, claiming she ran your department. Wow, David whistled. That's bold. Do you need a written statement? I need everything, David. The termination letter, the credit card receipts, the performance reviews where you told her she lacked basic leadership skills. Send it all. Done, sent. A few minutes later, my inbox chimed. I opened the files. It was a treasure trove of incompetence. Not only had she lied about her title, she had lied about her dates of employment to cover a 2-year gap where she was likely unemployed and living off mom and dad. But there was one more thing. A forwarded email in the batch David sent, something Chloe had sent to him begging for her job back. You can't fire me. My family has money, we know people. If you fire me, I'll tell everyone you harassed me. A pattern, it was a pattern of extortion. I printed everything. The stack of paper was thick, heavy with the weight of her deceit. My phone buzzed again, a text from Chloe. Lawyer retained. Prepare to lose everything, you miserable witch. See you in court. I looked at the text, then at the stack of papers. She was right about one thing. We would be seeing each other, but not in court. I checked the calendar. Sunday. Tomorrow was the annual post-Thanksgiving leftover lunch at my parents' house. It was a tradition. Chloe would be there, rallying the troops, spinning her narrative of victimhood, securing that check from my father. It was time to end the charade. I packed the documents into a leather briefcase, one that looked far too expensive for a struggling consultant. I went to my closet and pushed aside the hoodies and worn jeans. From the back, inside a garment bag, I pulled out a tailored Italian suit in charcoal gray. It was the armor I wore when I walked into boardrooms to dismantle failing companies. Tomorrow, I would wear it to lunch. The Sunday lunch was a tradition as old as my memory. Turkey sandwiches on white bread, stale pie, and the unspoken requirement to pretend we were a happy, functional unit. But today, the air in my parents' living room was so thick with tension it felt like walking through water. I parked my car, my real car, a sleek black Porsche Panamera that I usually kept garaged on the other side of town, right in the driveway blocking Chloe's Audi rental. I stepped out, the gravel crunching under my heels. I wasn't wearing the baggy jeans and oversized sweater they were used to. I was wearing the charcoal Italian suit, a silk blouse, and the watch I had bought myself when Helios Holdings crossed its first $10 million in assets. I walked to the front door, briefcase in hand. I didn't knock. The scene inside was exactly as I had predicted. Sophia was in the kitchen making coffee. Edward was sitting at the dining table, his checkbook open, a pen hovering over the signature line. Chloe was sitting next to him, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, looking like the picture of victimized innocence. Aunt Rachel was there too, sitting in the corner armchair, arms crossed, looking skeptical. The conversation stopped the moment I stepped in. Oh, the archway. Claire, Sophia asked, coming out of the kitchen with a pot of coffee. She froze. Her eyes traveled from my heels to my suit to my face. What are you wearing? Is that a rental? Chloe scoffed, though her voice wavered slightly. She looked at the briefcase. Trying to look the part for your legal defense? It won't help. Daddy is writing the retainer check right now. Put the pen down, Dad, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it had a timbre to it they had never heard before. It was the voice I used to close deals and fire incompetent CEOs. Edward looked up, startled. Claire, we're handling this. Your sister has been wronged. We need to support her. She hasn't been wronged, I said, walking to the table. I placed the briefcase down with a heavy thud. She's been caught. Caught doing what? Chloe snapped, standing up. Being ambitious, being better than you. You're just trying to sabotage me because you can't stand that I'm successful. Successful? I looked her in the eye. Chloe, you've been unemployed for 2 years. You were fired from your last job for credit card fraud. And you got this job at Veridian by blackmailing Greg Miller about an affair he had in Vegas. The room went deadly silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. That's a lie, Chloe stammered, her face turning a blotchy red. Mom, she's lying, she's crazy. Am I? I clicked the latches on the briefcase. They sprang open with a sharp sound. I pulled out the first document. This is the termination letter from your last employer in Chicago. It details the unauthorized purchase of concert tickets and personal travel on the company card. Would you like to read it, Dad? I slid the paper across the table. Edward stared at it, his hand trembling. He didn't pick it up, but he looked at the letterhead. He looked at the bold text that said termination for cause. And this, I pulled out a stack of emails, is the correspondence between you and Greg Miller. It's dated 2 months ago. You explicitly threatened to reveal his Vegas indiscretion to his wife if he doesn't hire you at 20% above the salary cap. Where did you get that? Chloe shrieked, lunging for the papers. That's private, that's illegal. I caught her wrist before she could touch the documents. My grip was iron. It's company property, Chloe, and as the owner of the company, I have the right to review it. She froze. She pulled her arm back, rubbing her wrist, looking at me with genuine confusion. Owner? What are you talking about? You don't own anything. I own Helios Holdings, I said, my voice calm, steady, and devastating. And Helios Holdings owns Viridian Dynamics. I bought it 3 weeks ago. I am the majority shareholder. I am the chair of the board. I am your boss. Sophia dropped the coffee pot. It didn't break, but it clattered loudly onto the counter, splashing hot liquid everywhere. Claire, what? I built my company 6 years ago, Mom, I said, not taking my eyes off Chloe. I didn't want to tell you because I wanted to make it on my own without this. I gestured to the checkbook. But I can't stand by and watch you bankrupt yourselves to fund Chloe's lies anymore. Chloe was shaking her head frantically. No, that's impossible. You're broke, you drive a Honda, you live in that dump. I live below my means so I can reinvest in my business, I corrected. And the dump is a strategic location near the fiber optic hub I need for my servers. But that's irrelevant. What is relevant is that, as of this morning, Greg Miller has been fired for gross misconduct, and your offer of employment has been formally rescinded. I pulled out one last document, a formal letter on heavy, cream-colored stock with the Helios logo embossed at the top. I slid it toward her. This is your notice. You are not welcome at Viridian. You are not welcome at any Helios subsidiary. And if you attempt to contact any of my employees again, our legal team, my actual legal team, will file charges for extortion. Chloe stared at the paper. She looked at the logo. She looked at my signature at the bottom. The reality of it was finally crashing down on her. The lucky sister, the failure, held the keys to the kingdom she had been trying to sneak into. Dad, she turned to Edward, tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time, tears of terror. Daddy, do something. She's ruining my life. She can't do this. Edward looked at the checkbook. He looked at the termination letter from Chicago. He looked at the blackmail emails. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. He saw the suit. He saw the car in the driveway. He saw the strength in my posture. Slowly, painfully, he picked up the pen. Dad, Chloe whimpered. Edward closed the checkbook. He capped the pen. He pushed them both away. You lied to us, Chloe, he said, his voice cracking. You said you were running that department in Chicago. You said you were a star. You stole. It was a misunderstanding, Chloe wailed. And you blackmailed a man? Edward continued, his voice rising. Is that how we raised you, to threaten people? I did what I had to do, she screamed. Because Claire always had everything. She's always the smart one, the good one. I just wanted to win for once. You don't win by cheating, Chloe, I said softly. Shut up, she screamed at me. Just shut up, I hate you. I hate your money, I hate your luck. It wasn't luck, Aunt Rachel spoke up from the corner, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. She worked while you partied, Chloe. We all watched it happen. We just didn't say anything because your mother wouldn't let us. Sophia let out a sob, covering her face with her hands. Chloe looked around the room. She had lost the audience. She had lost the check. She had lost the job. She had lost the narrative. She grabbed her purse. Fine, keep your stupid company, keep your stupid money. I don't need any of you. I'll find another job. I'll go to a competitor. You can try, I said, but the industry is small, and resume fraud is a hard stain to wash out. She glared at me one last time, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, and then turned and ran out the door. We heard the Audi door slam, the engine rev, and tires spin on the gravel as she sped away. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the debris of a shattered family dynamic. It took a long time for anyone to speak. Sophia was crying softly at the counter. Edward was staring at his hands. Rachel stood up and walked over to me. "Nice suit," she said quietly. "Thanks, Aunt Rachel," I managed a weak smile. "I knew," she whispered. "I saw your name in the business journal a few years back, top 30 under 30. I figured you'd tell them when you were ready." I was never going to be ready for this, I admitted. I walked over to the table and sat down across from my father. He looked older than he had 10 minutes ago. The illusion of his perfect little girl had been destroyed, and the realization of his own negligence was settling in. "Claire," he rasped, "is it true you own all of it?" "Yes, Dad." "Why didn't you tell us? Would you have treated me differently?" I asked. "Or would you have just asked me to give more money to Chloe?" He flinched as if I had slapped him. He opened his mouth to defend himself, then closed it. He looked at the closed checkbook. I suppose I deserved that." Sophia came over to the table, wiping her eyes. She looked broken. "We just wanted her to be okay, Claire. She's not strong like you. You never needed us. She always needed us." "She didn't need you," I said gently but firmly. "She needed to grow up. And by paying for everything, by hiding her failures, you stopped that from happening. You didn't help her, Mom. You crippled her." Sophia nodded slowly, the truth finally penetrating the denial she had wrapped herself in for decades. "I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. We've been unfair to you. We called you lucky. We didn't see the work." "It's okay," I said, though we all knew it would take a long time to truly be okay. "But this has to stop. No more bailouts, no more loans. If Chloe gets into trouble, she has to get herself out of it. Do you understand?" "Yes," Edward said, his voice firming up. "Yes, no more." I stayed for another hour. We didn't eat the leftovers. We drank coffee and talked, really talked, about my business, about my life, about things other than Chloe's latest drama. It was awkward, tentative, but real. When I finally left, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the driveway. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, the silence of the cabin wrapping around me. I felt drained, hollowed out, but also incredibly light. The secret was out. The weight I had been carrying, the need to hide my success to protect my sister's ego, was gone. I drove back to the city, but I didn't go to my apartment. I drove to the Helios office. I walked into the empty building, the lights humming overhead. I went to my office, the corner office I rarely used, and stood by the window looking out at the skyline. I pulled out my phone. I had a notification from our legal team. "Cease and desist delivered to Chloe D. Greg Miller has agreed to resign quietly in exchange for a neutral reference. The situation is contained." It was over. Chloe didn't disappear completely. She moved to a smaller city a few months later. From what Rachel tells me, she's working as a sales associate at a high-end boutique. It's an honest job. She has to show up on time. She has to be polite to customers. She has to pay her own rent. I hope, for her sake, she learns the value of it. As for me, I sold the shabby apartment. I bought a place closer to the water, somewhere with light and space. I stopped hiding. I started accepting invitatio. NS to speak on panels. I started driving my car to family events. The relationship with my parents is a work in progress. We're rebuilding, brick by brick, on a foundation of truth rather than enabling. It's not perfect, but it's honest. And the cabin, I didn't sell it. I hired a contractor to renovate it. I put on a new roof, fixed the dock, and installed a killer sound system. I go there on weekends now to sit by the water and listen to the wind in the trees. Sometimes I think about what Chloe said at that Thanksgiving dinner. That success is taken, not given. She was wrong. Success isn't taken. It's built. It's earned. And the only thing you truly own in this world is your integrity. That's not luck, that's just the truth.